As Hashem Yisboch, we begin Perek Shneim Asa, the 12th chapter in the Tefilah, the laws of prayer, and the Sefer of the Book of Love, which we continue with the related halachas of davening, specifically that of the Kriyas HaTorah and the Haftarah that's read also with the laning. As Rambam gives a halacha regarding the institution of reading from the Torah as it's connected with that of the davening. So Moshe Rabbeinu tikkun l'Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher, instituted for the Jewish people, they should read from the Torah in public, b'Shabbos, on Shabbos, b'Sheni b'Chamishi b'Shachris, and Mondays and Thursdays in the morning. That they shouldn't wait 3 days without hearing Torah. So from Monday to Thursday, Thursday to Shabbos, Shabbos to Monday, you're never going to have more than 3 days without hearing Torah. Now the Ezra tikkun, the later time in history, Ezra Sefer, he instituted that also they should lay in every mincha on Shabbos afternoon, because of those who sit in the corners. In other words, either all week they're busy with work and they don't have the laning on Mondays and Thursdays, so they have extra laning on Shabbos afternoon, or even on Shabbos they're just sitting around. So we want to give them an opportunity to have the laning. So another one on Shabbos afternoon. The Gamma Tikkun Yosa instituted, adding on to that of Moshe Rabbeinu's, Shikorin b'Shen v'Chamishi, that when we lane on Monday and Thursday should be Shleishim Adam, 3 people should be called up for an Aliyah, and also that it shouldn't be laned less than 10 verses, less than 10 psukim by those Kriyas HaTorah. Halacha Beis. Now the Elohim Hayom Shekorim B'Torah B'Tzibur. These are the days that we read from the Torah with the minyan. B'Shabbasos, as we mentioned, B'Mayadim, Yom Tovim, B'Rosh Chodashim, Rosh Chodesh, B'Tainis, public fast, Chanukah and Purim, and as we mentioned, every Monday and Thursday of every week. That we don't end off with reading from the Navi. We read from Chumash, which is from Torah. We don't end up reading from Navi. Only on those occasions. Halacha Gimel. We don't lane with a minyan from the Torah. Not less than 10 adult free men, in contrast to minors and to slaves. And you don't read less than 10 psukim. Now, Vayedaber, although it's not really teaching us anything, it counts from the number 10 psukim. Now, those who are reading from the Torah should not be less than 3 people. You don't start a parsha pachas mishleisha psukim, because we're concerned for those who come in late, that they weren't there with the first person who read, and if you're going to stop at the end of the first 2 psukim, in a parsha, meaning you can't start a parsha less than 3 psukim. If you're starting a parsha, you got to do at least 3 psukim, because if you stop and you only do 2, even though you learned from the previous parsha, where the next person is going to come in, he's going to see the next guy getting aliyah, and he's going to say, hey, this guy's starting, the previous guy looks like he learned only 2 psukim, which is not the case, it has to be at least 3 psukim. And so, you don't leave over in the parsha less than 3 psukim, because if someone's leaving early, he sees, hey, they're leaving only 2 psukim over, I think the next guy is aliyah only getting 2 psukim, which is incorrect. But to get rid of that mistake, we don't even cause that possibility of making a mistake. As we said, and the one who's getting the aliyah should not read less than 3 psukim. 3 who are reading 10 psukim, which this is the basic minimum. So 2 of them read each one 3 psukim. And one of them is going to get 4 psukim for his aliyah. Now, it doesn't make a difference whether the one who's going to get the 4 psukim is reaching the first aliyah, or achrein, or the last aliyah, or the middle one. Either way, it's praiseworthy, because each one has a reason why, first being the first, last being the last, middle being the middle, has reason to be the one that has the more psukim of the 4. Regarding how does this Kriyas HaTorah, how do we have those called up to get an aliyah? So every single one of those who are called up, what's called aliyah, is called up. So he opens up the Sefer Torah, he looks at the place where he's going to read from, and then he says, he tells the people, the community, bless Hashem who is blessed. So all the people respond, bless Hashem who is blessed forever and ever. Then he goes and he continues and he blesses, and he says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you Hashem, our God, King of the world, Asher baruch banu kol ha'am, who chose us from all the nations, and he gave us his Torah. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, who gives the Torah. And all the people answer Amen, which is a ratification of that. And then he reads from what he's supposed to read, until he finishes reading. He rolls the Sefer, and he makes now Baruch Achrayna. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are Hashem, our God, King of the world. Asher nas lanu, and some Girsos have the word Torat Emes, or take out the word Torah, I'll say, that he gave us his Torah, the true Torah, referring to Torah Shabbat, the written law, and the everlasting life he planted inside of us, referring to Torah Shabbat, Baruch atah Hashem noisei Torah, blessed you Hashem who gives the Torah. Halacha vav, ein hakor b'Torah. You can't have the one who's reading from the Torah, Rashai Likrit b'Torah, to be permitted to read from the Torah, until the community, the minyan, finished answering Amen on his bracha Rishayna. If Karta B'Tal, let's say he was reading and he made a mistake, even in the precision of one letter, you make him go back, until he reads it in the appropriate way. The Likrish 9 b'Torah, you can't have two people reading from the Torah at the same time, only one at a time. Let's say he was reading and he became silent, he couldn't say anymore. So someone else should take his place. He should start from the place where the first one who became silent, where he started from, not where he stopped. And then he makes the bracha after the reading. The one who's reading is not permitted to read until the great one in the community tells him, go, you get the aliyah, you read. Even the Balkairi, the Shleich Tzibah, the one who is in charge of this prayer service, or the one in head of the shul who conducts all the affairs of the shul, the Gabbai, he doesn't take the aliyah himself until the community tells him, or the great one amongst them tells him likris that he should read and he should get an aliyah. Now you have to have someone standing with him at the time when he's reading. Just like the Balkairi stands with those who are reading, because just like the Torah was given through a medium, through Moshe Rabbeinu, so too, when a person is getting aliyah, he has to have someone there standing with him. Someone who's reading, he could skip from place to place if it's if it's in one theme, one topic. For example, Achrei Mais, which is what the Kohen Gadol used to do on Yom Kippurim, from the Parsha of Achrei Mais, which talks about the Avodah Yom Kippurim, V'ach ba'aser, shebe Parsha Emel Kahanim. So to go from Achrei Mais to Emor, it's not so long of a gap. You could skip, and they're both talking about the same idea of Yom Kippurim. But that is Shalik Al-Peh, as long as he's not reading anything by heart. Because Sha'as Likr Shlem Neksav, Afel Teva Ach, is not allowed to read, not from the writing itself, even one word. But you shouldn't delay with this that he's skipping, because they had the custom that there was a translator who would translate the pasuk. He would say it in the Lashon HaKodesh, and the translator would say it in Aramaic. So till he finishes translating, you're able to get up to the next place where he's skipping. Only then would you be allowed to skip that until he finishes translating, but not to cause a larger gap where people are just sitting there. Halacha test. Once the one who's reading started reading from the Torah, it's forbidden to talk, even in a halacha discussion. Everyone has to listen and be quiet. And they have to pay attention to what he's reading. That the ears of all the people are toward the Torah scroll. It's forbidden to leave the shul when the one is reading from the Sefer Torah. But you're allowed to go out between aliyahs, between one person and the next person reading. Someone who's always constantly engaged in learning Torah, and his profession is his learning of Torah, then he's permitted to engage in the learning of Torah, even at a time when the one is reading his aliyah from the Sefer Torah. Now, halacha test regarding the targum of what's called targum unclus. From the days of Ezra Sefer, they had the custom that there should be an interpreter interpreting to the people. What the Balkai, what the one who's reading is reading from the Torah. Every pasuk there would be a translator. That the people, the populace, should understand what's the idea that's being read. Now, the one who would read only one pasuk. He would be quiet until the translator would translate. And then he goes reads the second pasuk. Now it's forbidden for the one who's reading to read for the translator more than one pasuk at a time, because they don't want the translator to make a mistake who's doing it by heart if you do more than one pasuk at a time. Now, the one who's reading from the Torah is not allowed to elevate his voice more than the translator. And the translator is not allowed to elevate his voice more than the one who's reading from the Torah. Now, the translator cannot translate until the one who's reading finishes all the words that he's reading from the pasuk. And then the one who's reading from the Torah cannot continue reading the next pasuk until the translator finished translating what he had said from the previous pasuk. Now, the translator is not allowed to lean, not on the beam, not on the pole. Like the Torah was given, he has to stand in awe and with fear. And he cannot translate from something that's written. It has to be orally, because things that were said by orally have to be said orally, which only Torah Shabbat, which the Lashon HaKodesh was written, has to be said written. And the one who's reading from the Torah is not allowed to assist. Let's say he sees the translator is not getting the words right, how to translate. He's not allowed to help him out. Because the people shouldn't say, "Oh, Targum Kasab Torah." You see, the Aramaic words are written in the Torah because the one who's reading the Torah is saying these Aramaic words. Now, v'hakatan, a smaller person, mitargum al-yedei gadol could be the translator for a greater person, but ve'in kaval gadol is not honor for a greater person. Shetargum al-yedei katan, that he should be the translator for a smaller person, because a translator is a lower step. And you shouldn't have two people translating together as one, because you can't hear two people at the same time. Rather, one person's reading, one person's translating, and that's it. Now, not every pasuk do they translate it in public. Ma'aser Reuben, the story of Reuben that he moved around his father's bed because it's embarrassing to Reuben. Birkas Kohanim, the blessing of the Kohanim, we're concerned that it sounds like it contradicts Hashem saying Asher lo yisef on them, because by Birkas Kohanim it says Yisef Hashem panim alecha, like as if Hashem shows favoritism. Now the Gemara explains why it's not a problem. There's a reason why Hashem shows the favoritism, and it's founded, it's justified, but that the populace might not understand it, so we don't translate it. So to Ma'aseh Egel, the story of the golden calf, min vayem Moshe la'Aaron, where it says Moshe said to Aaron, ad until vayar Moshe sa'am v'gam, Moshe told the people, etc. Void pasuk echad, and also another pasuk where it says v'yigav Hashem es ha'am, where we're concerned for the honor of Aaron, where Moshe Rabbeinu denigrated him in these psukim to the ears of the people, where it says v'yagav Hashem, and it also says asher asa Aaron, that as if Aaron is the one that's being blamed for making of the egel. So we don't translate it out loud. Kulam Nikram, they all read, but Belim Targum, they don't not translate it. Now v'maisa Amnon, the deviant act of Amnon, but Makam Shneim, where it says Amnon ben David, lo nikra v'lim Targum, it's not read and it's not translated because of the honor of David. The reason why it's not even read is because for the mafter you could read something else. The Kriyas Torah you have to read it. So you read it, you just don't translate it. Here you don't read it and you don't translate it. Halachit Gimel regarding the Haftarah. So mafter ben Navi, the one who finishes off the Kriyas Torah reading from the Navi, which they had instituted at one point because of a gzeira that they weren't allowed to read from the Torah, so they went and made the same amount of psukim to correlate to the amount of psukim that is the minimum for reading the Torah. They did that to read from the Navi. Now he has to first, what's called get an aliyah, first read from the Torah first, because of the covenant Torah. That shouldn't be like, okay, you read from the Torah, read from the Navi. No, the one who's reading from the Navi has to first read from the Torah to show that Torah is greater than Navi. And the filish psukim, even if it's just 3 psukim. And he reads over what the one aliyah before him had, which, because we already finished the whole parsha before the Kaddish, because you make a Kaddish between, and you have to finish before the Kaddish, because the Kaddish separates, so he just reads over what was read by the last aliyah. And after the Navi, you don't start reading from the Haftarah, from the Navi, until the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll is first rolled up, so that the one who's doing the Galila should be able to hear the Haftarah from the Mafter, that it shouldn't be distracted. And there shouldn't be less than 21 psukim in the Haftarah, which correlates to the 7 aliyahs, which each one doesn't get less than 3. So that's a total of 21. So the Haftarah should have 21 psukim. Now, but if the topic is finished and less than that, in the Tzarech you don't have to add on to have that amount. Now, if you read 10 psukim, and the translator translated the psukim, so that's also enough. Even if you didn't finish the topic, because each pasuk, if you double it because of the translation, is counted as another pasuk is 20. And the last pasuk you repeat over a second time in the Hebrew, in the Lashon HaKodesh, which can be 21. So therefore that'll be the 21 psukim. Ubenavi. Now regarding when you're reading from the Navi, Echad Kari, one reads, but Vafil Shnayim Mitagim, and even 2 people, unlike from the Kriyas Torah, could translate, because that's just that the people, the Nashim and Amaratzim, should hear it. And by Nevi'im, we're not so particular like what it says in the Torah, which we're very careful for, and therefore even 2 could translate together. Now, you could also skip from one topic even to another topic, unlike Kriyas Torah, where certain people might lose focus. But you can't skip from one Navi to a whole separate sefer of a Navi of a different prophet. Only from the prophets of the sefer called the Trei Aser, which is the 12 Navim, which are all considered like one sefer. As long as you don't skip from the end of one sefer and you go backwards to the beginning. And whoever does skip, should not delay with his skip. Again, only the amount of time that the translator will have finished his translation, not more than that. If someone who reads from the Navi, he could read forth to the translator 3 psukim in one shot. And the translator, he'll translate 3 psukim consecutively, one after the other. Unlike that of Kriyas Torah, you have to do one at a time. Now, if these 3 psukim were actually 3 different parashas, they each consider its own thing. Sometimes you could have actually a whole parasha, just one pasuk, which is in Yeshaya, Perek Beis. So then you have to read to the translator only one pasuk at a time. Someone who is reading from the Navi, so before he reads from the Haftarah, he makes one bracha, which is bracha to Hashem lekein melech olam, asher bacha min neviim v'chulu, that chooses good prophets, etc., the whole blessing. And afterwards he makes 4 blessings. Baruch Hashem, the first one is chaysim ba, he ends off hakel hanem b'chol devar, that the faithful God in all his words. Shnei, the second bracha chaysim ba, he concludes Bain Yerushalayim, builds Yerushalayim. Shlish, the third one chaysim ba, he ends off Magen David, that the shield of David. And Rabbi, the fourth one chaysim ba in Kiddush Hayom, he ends off with it, the sanctity of that day. Kamesha chaysim Tefilah, however it is that you end off on that day's davening. And if it's Shabbos Rish Chodesh, so I'm after Navi. So the one who's doing the Navi must Rish Chodesh bracha. In this last bracha, he mentions also not just Shabbos, but also mentions Rish Chodesh. Commission ask feel like just in davening you mentioned Shabbos Rish Chodesh. So too by the Haftarah. Halacha design regarding those who are being called up for an Aliyah. How many people are called up to read from the Sefer Torah? So it depends. Shabbos b'shachris, Shabbos by shachris, Kaim Sheba, you call 7 Aliyahs. 7 people are called up. They make a boom on Yom Kippur, Shisha 6. B'Yom Tovim on a regular Yom Tov Chamisha is 5. In person, you can't do less than that. But you could add on to the Aliyahs. B'Rosh Chodashim B'Chodesh by now Rosh Chodesh, and on the intermediate days of a Yom Tov, the Chol Hamoed days, Karin Arba, you call 4 Aliyahs. B'Shabbos they make a boom b'Mincha, and by the Mincha of Shabbos they make a boom, and B'Shein B'Chamisha Shal Kol Hashon on Mondays and Thursdays Shachris all year round. U'B'Chanukah Purim B'Shachris, U'Me'atainis B'Shachris of Mincha, and the fast days on Shachris and Mincha. Karim Shleisha, you call it 3 Aliyahs. In Perek you don't do less than this number, and actually even like you also don't add on, because those are days that people are busy and they need to go, and therefore it would be too much to add on more Aliyahs. Now, a woman should not read from the Torah by the community in the minyan, because of the honor of the community. A child who knows how to read, and he knows to whom you bless, he can be counted from the number of people called up for Aliyah. And so to the mafter, he could be also counted from the number of Aliyahs that you have to have, let's say 7 on Shabbos, because he reads from the Torah. But if the Bal Kairi, if he stopped with a Kaddish, between the last Aliyah and the mafter, then that's not counted, and that's our custom that you do 7 Aliyahs, and then the mafter is another one added onto that, because the Kaddish ended that. Tzibur. If you have a community that only one person knows how to read, meaning in those times when they didn't have a Bal Kairi, where it was just the one who got the Aliyah would read from the Torah, and only one person knows how to read, so Ayla B'Kairi B'Yayid. He goes up, he reads, he comes down, then he goes back and he reads a second time, and then the Shlish a third time, until you do the amount of Aliyahs that you're supposed to have that day, he goes back every time to show that it's that amount of Aliyahs for that day. Now, every one of these readings of the Torah, Kohen Kodesh, the first Aliyah goes to the Kohen. Then after it goes a Levi, and then goes to a Yisrael. Now it's a widespread custom today. Even if the Kohen is ignoramus, he gets the Aliyah before even a great sage amongst the Jewish people. Now, regarding all other Aliyahs, whoever is greater than his friend in wisdom, Kohen Likris is the first one to get an Aliyah. Now the last one, who rolls up the Sefer Torah, he takes the reward in commensurate to all the rest of them. Therefore, the one who goes up and finishes it off is even the great one of the community, which from the words of Rambam, it seems that the last Aliyah was the one who also did the rolling of the Sefer Torah, not like today where the last one gets the last Aliyah and then there's someone else who does this Hag B'Galila. Halacha test. Ancient Kohen, if there is no Kohen, so Yisrael gets the Aliyah. But V'lo Achav Levi Klal. Now, Levi gets the second one usually after the Kohen. Now, when Yisrael took that Aliyah, a Levi should not go up afterwards, so that they shouldn't say, "Oh, must have been that first one was a Kohen," therefore calling him Levi after him. But he's not; he's Yisrael. So to avoid that problem, the second Aliyah is not given to a Levi. Now, Insham Levi, let's say there is a Kohen, but there's no Levi. So Kohen Shekadishon, the Kohen that got the first Aliyah, he now goes takes the second Aliyah in place of the Levi. But you shouldn't give it to a different Kohen, because they might say, "Oh, why is the second Kohen going? Must be Harish and Pasul, must be the first one was invalid." And therefore they're giving it to another Kohen. No, so therefore to avoid that, the first kohen just takes it again. And mechalikur levi achar levi. So too, you don't call one levi after another levi. Let's say the levi got the kohen. You don't give a levi sheni. Shema yivin. They might say echem b'shem pasal. One of them is invalid, so you never have it kohen after kohen or levi after levi. Halacha chaf regarding the order of the kriyas haTorah and regarding the order of davening. So ketzat say the hakriya b'Torah achat tefilah. What's the order of the reading from the Torah after davening? Because kriyas haTorah is after davening. So kol yom shesh b'tfilas musaf. So any day that there's a musaf prayer, for example, Rish Chodesh or Chol Hamoed, after the chazan finishes the tefillah of shachas, oy mekadosh says kaddish, umayt say they take it as sebeter. V'kar le'echad min hatzibur, they call it one at a time from the community. And they get up and they get their aliyah from the Torah. When they finish, they bring the sebeter back to its place. By mekadosh they say kaddish, and then they daven musaf. Now, days that there's not only musaf, but there's actually also mafter, which we describe which days have mafter, then nagolema kaddish koid mashiyala mafter, then the custom is you say kaddish before the mafter, but v'yesh makamish nagolema kaddish acha mafter. There's a certain place that actually the custom is to say kaddish after the mafter. Halacha v'alfa, mincha shal Shabbos v'shem Kippurim, mincha on Shabbos Yom Kippurim, acha shig mashlich tzibur, after the chazan finishes saying, which we start off with Til Davar, which is called Ashrei b'sei the Kedusha, Valatzien, Oimer Kaddish, it says Kaddish. Umayt say B'Torah, they take it as a B'Torah. Ba'oil Mekarma, they go up and they get aliyas. Umachzira, and they put it back. Oimer Kaddish say Kaddish. Masbal Mincha, then daven Mincha. Tchim B'Tainus, regarding a fast day. Karma Mincha, they read by Mincha. V'akach Oimer Kaddish, then they say Kaddish. Masbal Mincha, they daven Mincha. But Yom Tov le'nagalik is by Mincha. But Yom Tov, the custom is not to read from the Sefer Torah by Mincha. Lacha Beis, now B'Yom She'im by Musaf, a day that there is no Musaf. Because you're going to Tefilah Shachris. When they finish Shachris, Oimer Kaddish, they say Kaddish. Umayt say B'Torah, take it as Sefer Torah. V'Kohanim, they read from it. Umachzira, they bring it back. Then Kaddish, they say Kaddish. And then they say Ashrei and the Balatzin, just like they say every single day. And then everyone takes leave from the shul. Halacha Gimel regarding other takanis of the tzibur, in Kohanim chumashim about the kansias. A chumash, although it's like a regular Sefer Torah, just a fifth of it, which is it's the 5 chumashim of the Torah. You don't read from a chumash in shuls, mishum covered at tzibur because of the honor of the community. So although technically it would be valid, but it's not covered to read not from a whole Sefer Torah. And the in Goylan Sefer Torah b'tzibur, neither do you roll the Sefer Torah when you have to get to another place with the community there. And the Terech HaTzibur, because it's a great effort for the community, that it shouldn't be a burden on them. They have to wait over there until you roll to where you need to get to. Therefore, if you have to read from 2 different topics on that day, so Sefer Torah, you take out 2 Torah scrolls, so you don't have to roll to the next one. Now you shouldn't have one person read from the same topic in 2 different Torahs, because they might say, oh, Sefer Rishon Pagam, it must have been the first one was flawed, so is reading from the second one, so to avoid that, you have someone else, so it just looks like a different aliyah. Halach Abdal regarding this idea of Galila, Hakol HaGoyel Sefer Torah, whoever rolls up the Sefer Torah, Goylim Bachutz, he rolls it up where he rolls it up from the outside, meaning to say that everyone else is seeing the outside as he's rolling it. A few different interpretations of what that means. And when he tightens it, like the belt, you tighten it from the inside, meaning towards the writing, so that when you open up the Sefer Torah, you don't have to go around the back. That's not honorable to turn over the Sefer Torah to open up the knot that you put on the belt with. You have to make sure that the stitching is there in the middle, so that it shouldn't tear, so that you should have it not pulling at the stitching. And Mokum Shemitzi in Sefer Torah, in a place where they take out the Sefer Torah, after that they read from it, meaning after they do the aliyas, they go and they bring it somewhere else to conceal it, because it's not safe, let's say, in the shul. In the tzibur shul, the community is not allowed to leave the shul until first the Sefer Torah goes out. They escort it, after it, until it gets to the place where it's concealed, and only then are they allowed to leave the shul.